And we're live. Welcome, everybody, to this week's edition of the Liberty First Foundation's Roundtable. I'm Mike Marshall. I'll be hosting tonight. Unfortunately, Frank will be joining us later. He got detained doing some other stuff. And with me, I have Michael Vasquez, the Dragon of the Southern Tier, now in Brooklyn.
No, Bronx, not
Brooklyn.
The
Bronx.
Big difference.
I'm sorry, Bronx.
Big difference. And
I don't know the city.
No, everyone in the city knows, but there's a big difference between the Bronx and Brooklyn. Can't confuse.
Yeah, I have no idea. So, quite a week. Actually, quite a few couple of weeks. Finally got a new House Speaker, but seems like not a lot of people know much about him. The left is claiming that he is ultra MAGA and all that happy stuff. They're also trying to claim that he is making up that he has an adopted black son that he adopted when he was 14, when his son was 14.
Okay, well,
and
let's debunk. Well, actually, go ahead and finish, and then we'll debunk this. It'll take no time at all.
Yeah. But they're trying to claim that because Michael's photos don't appear on his Facebook page or on the his congressional website or on his personal website, that this son does not exist. Michael, why don't you go ahead and tell them what you found in less than a minute?
Literally, it took way less than a minute to find this. Give me 2 seconds here, folks. My computer is just running a little bit slow. And I want to show you this because this is how easy it is to find and to realize how racist this is. Okay. So can we see it on the screen right now?
Yes.
Okay. So just so you see, this is an exclusive. This is coming from Newsweek.com, credible news media. October 27th, 12:34 p.m.
Well, I don't know about how credible they are. The left claims they're credible.
They're an internationally recognized news agency. That's credible enough for, and this is a left-leaning, centrist left-leaning news organization. So it's not coming from the right. Looking at their own article, we can go right down to, where is it? There it is. So now they buried this part, which is the proof, the part that debunks the Democrats directly. Several photos of the son, Michael, in question were displayed on screen during Johnson's 2020 PBS interview with journalist Walter Isaacson, which is available in full on YouTube. So the kid is available. He has been known. And oh my God, how incredibly shocking it is that he doesn't want the publicity. Maybe because he knows, being a son, a black Republican, he is going to be attacked mercilessly from Democrats, from progressives, as he is right now. He is being attacked so badly that they are saying he doesn't exist. They have dehumanized him and said he is not a non-entity just because he doesn't want to be involved with the politics, the poisonous politics of the left. No wonder he doesn't want to be involved. No wonder he doesn't want his picture shown on a regular basis, because look at what they do. The very first thing out their mouth after 8 years that Mike Johnson has been in the Congress, even though you can spend 30 seconds and find a PBS interview with him, showing him, that takes 30 seconds. No, the first thing they want to do is race bait.
Yeah.
These are racists that are doing this. It's debunked.
Exactly.
And and of course, every Republican, doesn't matter who it is MAGA extremist and evil. Why? Because they're not progressive left. So everyone else is, obviously instantly MAGA right, because MAGA, Make America Great, is such a terrible thing.
Yeah. Well, I want to show you my favorite person. And what he's saying about the quote unquote no labels party, which is backing Kennedy for his presidential run.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So let's see. Sorry, trying to find the right tab. So Robert Reich. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
No Labels refused to reveal who's funding its third-party presidential bid, but recent leaks reveal that at least one donor was Harlan Crow, the GOP mega donor who funded Clarence Thomas's lavish vacations. Hello. And he's basically trying to claim that the No Labels Party is essentially a extreme right party.
It's incredible. So, you know, it's funny how it's always so terrible. No one wants to talk about the fact that 14% of all the supporters for Chris Christie, as an example, are all Democrats. Oh, no. This is a conspiracy. It's only conspiracy when someone on the right is doing something that the people on the left don't like.
Mm-hmm.
And it's only because we've already seen that MoveOn.org on June 27th, specifically, this was announced June 27th, MoveOn.org went out, had a dinner with all of the Senate Democrats and told them if you mention anyone's name besides Joe Biden, they will cut their funding to their reelection and would seek to support someone else. Democrats are again looking to put in the censorship and nullify all of their voters. And now, and every time, someone else is doing something that we didn't approve of. Well, then they must be evil. It must be bad. It must be a conspiracy. Meanwhile, you're not supposed to talk about their conspiracies.
Here's the thing. They keep trying to claim that all MAGA supporters are fascists, that all conservatives are fascist, and that we're this, that, and the other. Okay. I don't see conservatives trying to completely shut down the Democratic Party. I don't see conservatives trying to say that the Democratic Party shouldn't be heard. Okay, I see conservatives disagreeing with a lot of stances Democrats have, but they agree that Democrats have the right to their opinion. Okay, we are seeing a blatant, outright move and push to completely silence anybody who isn't 100% pro-Democrat right now.
I'd even say pro-progressive, going even further. Yeah. It's not enough to be Democrat. You have to be even further to the left and more extreme.
And actually, you have to be even more than that, because Robert Reich is a democratic socialist, even though he will not call himself that. But if you look at his policies and you look at a lot of his videos, that is exactly where he stands. And you will see that a lot that are pushing for this are exactly that. They are Democrat socialists or democratic socialists.
Yeah.
Now, I want to remind everybody that the Nazi Party stood for the Nationalist Socialist Party of Germany.
Yep.
That is where Nazi came from. That is exactly what the Nazi Party was.
Yeah.
They tried to bury this, but Hitler was a socialist. Hitler approved of nationally sponsored social programs.
No, they like to
He
redefine
heavily
it.
endorsed nationally sponsored social programs.
No, they always want to redefine it and say, well, no, he was really on the right. No, he wasn't. He was a far left radical. And I'm not saying that because he was a vegetarian, but I'm saying it because that's where his politics were. He's a statist, an extremist, following in the lines of the brown shirts of Italy. And this is
Well,
what we
we
see
have
on the
brown
far left.
shirts today, Antifa.
Yes, we do. They
Okay.
wear black
And
shirts
you can
instead.
try to claim that Antifa doesn't exist, but we all know that they do. And
Well, Jerry Nadler's a liar.
as the brown shirts were in Nazi Germany, Antifa is the same here in the United States.
Mm-hmm. Well, we should say
Okay.
Antifa and all of its variants, because you have Indivisible New York, you have the Progressive Leaders of Tomorrow, sometimes known as Plot. You have different names, Defenders of the Atlanta Forest. They have different names in each pocket. It's something that we see a lot from the left. You will be a member of 5 different organizations. All of the members are exactly the same people, but this is how they make it seem like, oh, we have so much momentum behind us. We have the Veterans for Peace. Those are the same people who are part of Progressive Leaders of Tomorrow. They're part of the Working Families Party. They're part of the Progressive Party. They're all Democrats. They're in 6 different organizations. They're all the same people. They just use different names depending on what their goal is.
You're very correct, Dal. That they often misattribute that his politics were purely fascist. Okay, while his he did become a fascist leader, his political ideologies were nationalistic socialism. Okay, they were not of the type of fascism. Okay, he actually became a fascist because the nationalistic socialist programs that were implemented during the early part of his reign failed. Okay, so he had to become an authoritarian in order to start bringing Germany around. And that's also what tended to lead towards Germany trying to dominate all of Europe and take over Europe, is because the socialistic policies that they had implemented were failing.
Because socialism
And a lot of those policies that were implemented under the Nationalist Socialistic Party are many of the same policies that they are trying to implement today through the progressive caucuses.
Yeah. But because they always follow the same, it's not that we see the progressive movement, the far left, they haven't done anything new. They haven't changed anything in the last roughly 100 years. Just their names, the organizations they're in, they changed that to match with the times, and they changed their slogan, whatever their little catchy 30-second slogan is, they changed that with the times. But other than that, their policies never change. The policies of today's the Democratic Socialists of America are the same policies as the 1950s Communist Party, the same as what we saw in the 1930s. The American Socialists of the 1930s. They're all the same. They just changed the titles.
And here's another thing. You brought up a great point, Michael. From about 1900 on through until about the late 50s, early 60s, there was a big push for socialism here in the United States. Okay, that's what led to the New Deal. That's what led to a lot of progressive programs that we see today.
The growth of unions in the country, yeah.
Yes. Okay. how the socialists of that time period gained a lot of momentum and traction is because they were also tied in with communist.
Yeah.
The Communist Party of the time.
Which
Okay.
was surging.
When you're talking about socialism or communism at that time, during that time period, they were the same.
Yeah. It was the 1917, 1918 Soviet uprising, the proletariat moving ahead, the battles throughout all of Russia.
And if you don't believe me, folks, you can find countless sources for this information.
It's historical fact.
Okay. It is historically documented, very well documented, actually. And it wasn't actually until the Warren Commission and the Cold War that communism actually started falling out of favor.
The McCarthyist,
McCarthyism.
We're talking about
that's actually what I meant to say.
Yeah, early 1950, late 1948 to 1953 was the big start of the rejection of communism. That's at the same time that we saw the communists going into Korea, going into Vietnam, going into, they were expanding or trying to expand through third world nations around the world and infiltrate many of the governments of the world. And that's when America started pushing back against it. And at the same time, where all of the atrocities were being seen. I mean, it was, we got to see the results of Stalin's after World War II. Stalin killed more people after World War II in his mania in running the Soviet Union. He killed more people than died in World War II. He was more deadly than the Germans in World War II. That was followed up by and exceeded by 1966 Chairman Mao, as he took over China and killed more people than World War II, more people than died in all of Soviet Russia in World War II.
And Mao was the one that instituted communism in China.
Yeah, with his little red book, the Red Movement. It was absolutely bloody. The reason why it was red is because of the blood that was being shed. We're talking about estimates are somewhere between 60 million people may have died under Chairman Mao. Then you, of course, have the little guys like Che Guevara, who went to Cuba and was massacring every gay person he could find, and the far leftists that were in Cuba, and just outright killing them all, just lining them up against walls and shooting them dead. These are the heroes of the left because we don't talk about what they actually did. But is it a surprise that in each of the cases we can go to Venezuela now, the very same heroes that we saw being praised by Bernie Sanders are the very same ones who are killing their own people, as reported by the New York Times, starving their own people, which we hear reports of. This is why Venezuelans are the number one. They are 1/3 of all of the illegal immigrants coming into America in 2023. And when we think about this for a second, we realize that it's this progressive movement. Who supports Hamas? Democratic Socialists of America, the far left, BLM, all of the far leftist organizations. The more progressive you become, the more likely you are to support Hamas as they commit acts of genocide, as they take hostages from the United States and Southeast Asia and Europe, hundreds and hundreds of hostages, using them as human shields. These are all violations of the Geneva Convention. These are all human rights violations. And the answer from the left is, oh, by the way, let's give them more resources so they can continue to commit genocide, so that they continue to have human hostages and shields. Does this make sense to anyone?
No, it doesn't. And people only look at Hitler when they look at fascism. Okay. and they equate the modern neo-Nazis as being the same as the Third Reich Nazis.
No.
And they're not. Okay, the only ideology that the two share is white supremacy and a master race. That's the only thing that those two ideologies share. Beyond that, politically, the two are complete opposites. Okay, now that being said, we forget about the person that actually started fascist governments.
Mussolini in Italy?
Yes. Yes, Mussolini was a fascist. Okay.
Yeah.
And he was the one that gave rise to fascism. But he started off as a socialist.
Mm-hmm.
And he started off as a nationalistic socialist.
Yeah, that's the brown shirts of Italy. Yeah, they were all socialists.
Okay. And in his rise to power, again, we're seeing a lot of similar events happening in Italy that were happening in Germany. Okay.
A lot of the same factors, yeah. Pressure.
Yes, a lot of the economic pressures and so forth, the economic declines, which in turn led to Italy trying to expand its sphere of influence and take over other countries because they were running out of resources in their own country.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's what really led to the rise of the Axis parties or Axis party in Europe. Now, Japan joined with it for totally other reasons, and I'm not going to get into that tonight.
Well, Southeast Asia politics is very intricate and takes a lot of time.
Okay, but there are other reasons why Japan ended up allying itself with Germany and Italy. But we're going to focus mainly on the European theater and the fact that at the beginning of World War II, the Russians and Germany were both very strong allies with one another. And that's something that a lot of people miss and a lot of historians don't like to mention when they're discussing this. Okay. Antifa, in their communist thing, tries to claim that they are anti-fascist. Well, communism was not anti-fascist. Okay. And Russia would have actually probably allied itself with Germany if Germany wouldn't have started attacking holdings of Russia.
Actually,
it was a joint.
Russia started as part of the Axis. They were part of Germany's movement. It's not like they would have. They did. They signed the agreements. They entered the war on the side of Germany, on the side of Italy, on the side of the socialist movement. It was only after Germany then decided to basically Poland was this deciding factor. And Germany went into Poland.
Poland was a joint operation of German and Russia.
Yeah, but the Germans went beyond the unofficial dividing line they had made in the agreement.
And that's what ended up turning Russia towards the Allied party.
Yeah, and if Germany hadn't done that, of course, lots of dominoes start falling because of that. But if it weren't for that action, the Soviet Union would have been on the same side as Germany far longer into the war than they started with, which no one likes to talk about because communism is wonderful. Socialism is a good thing. That's why you should be part of pro-Hamas support. And that's why you should be down there at Cooper Union threatening the innocent Jewish students in a library that the New York Times says, well, that's perfectly fine. That's not threatening at all. We'll get into that. That really pissed me off, but let's go on.
Well, that's why you should lead an insurrection of the Capitol building and not face any repercussions from it.
Yeah, you mean like the insurrections that we saw
Of October 18th.
Of October 18th, when 300 of the far left broke into the offices of the congressional members of the House and bypassing and assaulting the security and threatening those members of the House. Yeah, that happened this year. You didn't hear about it.
Shut
Why?
down all forms of egress out of the building.
Mhm.
Okay. Elevators shut down, stairways were shut down, exits were shut down. That essentially held both the House of Representatives and the United States Senate hostage, disrupted a House Foreign Affairs Committee hearing, or no, a Senate Foreign Affairs Committee meeting, hearing.
Were warned they were going to be arrested. 308 of them were arrested. Yeah, this is exactly the terms of insurrection as defined by the left, even without counting the actions of Jamal Bowman, which were also the exact definition of insurrection that the left has been using as an accusation. But because the left-leaning media agree with those socialist politics, you don't hear about it. It's the reason why you don't hear about what happened in Cooper Union. It's why you're not hearing about the colleges that are anti-free speech throughout America and their support of genocide. And I'm talking about the Ivy Leagues. I'm talking about Cornell, Harvard, Tufts. I'm talking about Binghamton University. I'm talking about Rutgers University. We're seeing it across the board. Again, I'm jumping ahead, but let's go on.
Okay, and then you have members of Congress, members of Congress who are actively calling for the annihilation of Israel. Mm-hmm. Okay. I don't know if you heard about it, Michael, or if you heard about it, Frank, but Marjorie Taylor Greene introduced a resolution on the House floor today. Was it today or yesterday?
Yesterday.
To censure Rashida Tlaib.
Yes.
For her anti-Semitic remarks over a number of years.
Yes.
And for her leading an insurrection on October 18th, because she was a part of it. Mm-hmm. They actually have messages from an underground texting service that are attributed to Congresswoman Tlaib.
Organizing and
in support and in organizing these. She was supportive of calling for the basically day of jihad, etc. Okay, so Marjorie Taylor Greene introduced this resolution for censure against Rashida Tlaib. Within hours after that, Representative Becca Balint moves to censure Marjorie Taylor Greene. Okay, and basically she's trying to say that Marjorie Taylor Greene is the one that is actually
racist,
anti-Semitic.
Yeah.
She's anti-LGBTQ, for hate speech, Islamophobe, anti-Asian hate, xenophobia, and other forms of hatred.
In other words, she's not a progressive.
Mm-hmm.
That's all. All you had to do, sum that up. She's not a progressive like Rashida Tlaib. She's not part of the Democratic Socialists of America. Therefore, she must be evil because they are the definition of all that is angelic and good, which is why Rashida Tlaib would not say that she was against the beheading of children. She has never said that Hamas was wrong to commit acts of genocide against civilians, while Rashida Tlaib is known to promote lies as international. Every news agency and intelligence agency around the world have confirmed that it was the Iranian rockets used by by Hamas, of which 500 out of 8,000 have failed. One of those rockets failed to hit Israeli civilians and wound up hitting a hospital in Gaza. And Rashida Tlaib promoted a lie which was detrimental to both politics and human lives and said, nope, it was because of Israel. Yeah, that kind of wonderful angel, Rashida Tlaib. Oh my God, she pisses me off.
Okay, and basically in her claims, Balint claims that whereas on May 20th, 2021, Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene said that the mask mandate in the House of Representatives was akin to Jews being put in trains and taken to the gas chambers in Nazi Germany. Whereas on May 25th, 2021, Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene tweeted, "Vaccinated employees get vaccination logo, just like the Nazis forced Jewish people to wear a gold star." And this is what she's claiming as anti-Semitic remarks.
If anything, you would think that those remarks would be sympathetic to the plight.
You would think.
Now, granted, those remarks are not exactly the greatest things to say. I mean, let's face it.
Not as a representative. They're not.
Comparison between, people that were, herded onto boxcars and tattooed so that it would be easier for them to identify them as they executed them, versus people that were forced to get vaccine ID mandates, ID cards and stuff. It's not to that extreme.
Yeah.
But it's not anti-Semitic. It might downplay, the worst you could say is that it downplays the plight of the Jewish people during World War II.
Yes.
That would be the worst thing that you could say, or that it blows out of proportion what was happening with the vaccines. But to say it's anti-Semitic, that's more of a stretch than Marjorie Taylor Greene's stretch.
Well, I don't think Marjorie Taylor Greene's stretching at all. I think she's pretty down and absolutely correct.
I actually, honestly, neither one of these people that are facing censure really are the best representations of a member of Congress.
No.
To be quite honest.
No, but that doesn't mean, while neither of them are my ideal choice, there is still a massive chasm of difference in terms of the quality of these individuals. And more importantly, we have seen Rashida Tlaib, along with the rest of the squad, which would include Anna Presley, Ilhan Omar, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and its further expansion through the Progressive Caucus, which includes Hakeem Jeffries, Jamal Bowman, and many others. These are the individuals who have directly stated that they want to remove the Constitution, that they want to rewrite the Bill of Rights. They want to redefine America along their political desires and agenda. That is insurrectionist, and that is a chasm away from everyone else in Congress. And I am not comfortable with their repetitive and continuous downplay of anything that attacks the United States. They are happy to have illegal aliens in our country. They are happy to see other nations attack America. Ilhan Omar, what did she say famously? Oh, on 9/11, some people did something and, could have gone better. Wait a minute. What? You're downplaying one of the most horrific moments in American history and saying some people did something? Really? Really? Is that the best thing? Well, gee, maybe if you had actually been born American, you might have more sympathy and concern about it. But she isn't. That's my personal point of view. And I don't expect anyone else to support that or stand by that. But I have no great love of Ilhan Omar or the squad or any of the values that they have. And if someone doesn't like that, you don't have to, but I'm not going to change my opinion.
What strikes me more than anything about this squad, and God, I hate that friggin' word, squad. Squad. A squad were a bunch of guys flying, piston-driven airplanes during the war. That was a squad. That was a squad. This is a bunch of America-hating commie bastards. That's all this is.
They're a squawk.
They're squat. All right, that's what strikes me as more disgusting and deplorable than their ideological bent is that as recent as 25 years ago, if they were to espouse any of the beliefs that they stand for and that they talk about on a regular basis, those things would have been disqualifiers from public office in the United States. These are things that the American people would have said. We don't elect communists to represent the people. We don't elect people with this hatred of America to represent the people. You can have disagreements on policy. You can have disagreements on funding issues. You can have disagreements on ideological basis, but you're supposed to represent your country with a love of your country, not a desire to undermine and destroy your country. 25 years ago, these people would have never been able to make it to a ballot. And now they're mainstream. And to me, I find that to be more upsetting than anything that they can say, is because that there's a handful of people out there that vote this way, that think this way, that have the same ideology as them. And to me, that is more frightening than anything else. Because these people, honestly, if you can't embrace the Constitution and the country that was founded through it, why are you here? There are 200 other countries that you could go to and live the life that you want to live in accordance to the ideology that you espouse. Go. Why the hell would it be so? Why is it so important for you to undermine this country when you can go over and just live the life in somebody else's country? Because the fact is, they know their ideology sucks, but they believe somewhere that they're going to be in charge of it if it ever should come that way. And they'll be able to live large while everybody else suffers.
Well, you know what, Frank? I think there's a slight qualifier to that, because I think while the believers, I'm sure, do agree with you that they'll be in the leadership position when everything changes, which historically has never been true. Look at any nation that has gone towards socialism, and the leadership are always the ones that get killed first. The politicians, the teachers, anyone with the entertainers are always the first ones to get killed because they're the ones who changed everything. But I think there is a larger proportion of many of these people who are in that progressive movement, in the far left movement, and they don't actually believe that. They're just taking the opportunity to basically use the system for their benefit. It's like Patrice Cullors. She's a self-avowed communist who has said that she created BLM so that she could introduce more black people to communism and to help shift this nation into the progressive movement. That's why she created it, why she wants to destroy the nuclear family amongst the black community. And what has she done? She used BLM to be able to amass $80 million by herself, 6 mansions, to allow her family to live in these mansions across the United States, to retire with a multi-million-dollar retirement package, and then to walk away from the entire movement. That's what we see. They know that they could go to any other country and never live the quality of life that they get to live here in America by abusing the system and by abusing the hopes and dreams of so many millions of people. I think that's what most of them are. Most of the people on the left, they are disingenuous. They don't believe it, because if they did, they wouldn't have an iPhone. They wouldn't be drinking lattes. They wouldn't be doing 2/3 of the things they do, because they don't want to give up their creature comforts. They're not believers. They're just tagging along. And then there's the one or two believers in there. That's something I think people should think about for a second.
Well, I would hope that a lot of the people that vote that persuasion all take a lesson from history and start looking at the photographs of Stalin and Mussolini. Look at the photographs of Stalin and Mussolini and all their advisors at the beginning of the war, and then look at the exact same photographs towards the end of the war. It's the same photograph, except all the people that were close to them, their advisors, their closest muckety mucks, all of their true believer supporters, were all photoshopped out of the photographs. They were all erased. They killed them off.
Yeah,
The people that were
1940s version of Photoshop.
Yeah. They were just edited out of the photographs as if they didn't even exist. They were footnotes to history. They helped elevate the platform to where it was, and then the platform found they had no more use. And then they said, well, they also know where the bodies are buried. The closest advisor is often your biggest threat too. So when they have these people that bring in close to them, of course they're going to be the first one to get Vince fostered. You know where everything is.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah. And we got into that discussion before you got here, Frank, about how they try to claim that the right is fascist, that ultra MAGA is fascist, and so forth. And we made the case, and it's on the historical record. It's easily researched that fascism is just a spin-off of socialism. Okay, it is a different branch of socialistic behavior. It is very close to communism, except it is more authoritarian than communism is.
Well, a lot of your differences between socialism, fascism, and full-blown communism are not necessarily based on the ideology, but based on how it's imposed on the people.
Uh-huh.
When you have socialism and fascism, they're often brought into the people via voting, where they'll use a wedge issue to drive something between everybody, and it'll be based on social structure and finance. And they'll use that issue to try and say, well, if we give more control to the government can regulate things better, and then we'll be able to do this, we'll be able to do that, and everybody will be equal. Once you get there and you enable your government to be able to facilitate taking away everybody's property rights, taking away freedoms, taking away everything else, the next leap is communism, because now you've enabled them to do whatever they want to do. So you can vote your way in, but eventually communism takes over. And
I'm going to rebut that for just a second. Okay. Socialism is generally voted in. Communism generally is brought in via a revolution. That is what started the communist reign in Russia. Okay. What ends up happening with socialism is often when it progresses and it starts to fail, you start seeing a fascist authoritarianism.
Right. Well, that's what I'm saying. Once you have those seeds are planted, communism will eventually come in. Now, yes, it does come in through force, but you're not going to have a communist takeover of a country like America without first transforming it into a socialist utopia that is destined to fail. Because once it fails, then the people who caused the failure use the military to come in and take over everything and install full-blown communism. You can't. You
Well,
just don't.
no, that's
make-
what. Okay, and actually, right there at that moment when socialism starts failing, that's where it can go one of two ways. Okay, and typically the way that we've seen it go historically the most is we typically see it going towards fascist, towards an authoritarian fascist regime. Okay, where one party is, or one person is the authoritarianism. When you go communism, okay, even though you typically have a single communist leader, there is still a communist party that is supporting that leader. Okay, so one is primarily an authoritarian. I make the rules, you abide by the rules. Regardless, I make all the decisions. And the other is a leader that's being propped up by a party that is typically of a communistic nature.
Oh, but the end results are still exactly the same.
Yeah,
The
they are.
people not free. And
Yes,
then
they
you can go one of two different ways. You could either have communism come in, or they could fight. The people could fight back and try to institute a new free government. The problem with why it's never happened in the past, where people institute a free government, is because the people have never been armed in the countries that these things took place in. So when Italy went fascist and decided to do what they did, the people were powerless. When Russia went communism, the people were powerless. Any of these regimes that you see take place, what's one of the first things that the socialists do is disarm the people.
Mhm.
Because they know that eventually, when communism does make the great stride and does do the takeover, if you have a disarmed people, they're easier to take over and easier to quell. That's why it would be hard to do here in America. That's why this has been the long game with these people. It's been the long game with them. It's not been a one generation switch like you've seen in other countries. It's taken forever, because they know they have to change the minds of the people. They have to disarm the people before they can institute everything that they want to institute.
Well, I want to highlight, because I think you're right, Frank. They're doing the long game in the way they are changing the students at our schools and the way that they change the minds of the average person in the public. What I have up here on the screen, it's 52 seconds long. It's talking about what happened this week at Cooper Union, a college in Manhattan, in New York City. Most people around the nation don't know it and haven't heard about the news about how the pro-Hamas students tried to attack Jewish students, pro-Israeli students in Cooper Union. And I think it's really important that, well, hell, it's 52 seconds. Let me play this. You guys should be able to hear this. Tell me if you do. And it sums it up, what they are doing in the long game. Here it is.
Make sure you have audio included.
It should be.
Okay.
We'll find out real quick. Times must think you're an absolute. Do you hear that?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. So this is the New York Times. This is from the New York Times. Idiot. In the 7th paragraph of their article, the New York Times tells you that the students had to be locked into a library for their safety, to protect them, as people were banging on the doors and screaming at them and shouting epithets. And because in the 8th paragraph, the reporter and the editor think you're an idiot, that you don't understand English, they tell you there was no threat. No one was threatened. No, they were just banging on the door because it was a happy day. They were just screaming at these students, trying to get in, trying to break down the door, trying to break down the wall, because they just wanted to give them hugs. It's stupid. This is insane. Is this really the best that the New York Times can provide? It's called bias. The New York Times
that bias
must think is important. And I think this is important to understand. This bias we're told to accept as normal. The New York Times, all the news that's fit to print, has decided to say, literally in 2 paragraphs, one, these students were terrified, and security, not the New York City Police Department, which was supposedly on the scene, and did nothing about this obvious attempt at menacing, coercion, threats of violence, and bodily harm. Did absolutely nothing. But the security guards stepped up to protect these students who were not engaged in any altercation. They were on their own. They were just in a library. These pro-Hamas students, these far left students at Cooper Union, who have been taught by the teachers at Cooper Union and many other left-leaning institutions that this is what you must accept, that anyone who disagrees with you is creating a microaggression against you and therefore is being violent against you, and therefore you are entitled to attack them. This security guard was so terrified for their lives, he had to lock them in to save their lives, to protect them. And the New York Times dares to tell you to your face that if you think that someone has to be locked into a building to protect them, has no threat being made against them, that there is no harm in this whatsoever. We have moved towards the left. We have moved towards fascism and authoritarianism to a degree that never existed in this nation in its history beforehand. And I am terrified, not just for the students at Cooper Union, not just for the students in colleges across America, but for the average people, because our news media is actively telling you to your face, you're not smart enough to understand what we just told you one paragraph, 2 sentences ago. That's terrifying.
Okay, I put up a comment from Jan Rains, and I want to address this real quick. Okay. Jan, this has been going on since long before the WEF. It started happening in the early 1900s, is when it really started gathering momentum. It was stopped for a good period, but in the early 1900s to around 1948 to 53, there was a big push for socialism and communism here in the United States. We actually had a communist political party in the United States. We had a socialist political party in the United States. They were never able to really get any traction as a major political party, but they did tend to side with Democrats.
Surprise.
And this eventually led to the election of Franklin Delano Roosevelt, the only president that has ever served more than 2 terms. He was also the reason why we imposed term limits on the presidency. A lot of people look at Franklin Delano Roosevelt as being this grand politician that was so great for America with his New Deal and other programs that he implemented, such as welfare and the increase in unions and other like programs. Okay, essentially these were socialistic type of programs. Franklin Delano Roosevelt was a socialist, even though he claimed to be just a Democrat. One of the reasons why Franklin Delano Roosevelt was able to be elected so many times was because when election season came around, he was very good at playing both sides. And he's able to garner support from both sides. When it was off election years, he continued to push his socialist agenda. He was also the one that, because the Supreme Court was striking down many of the programs and policies that he's trying to implement, that threatened to pack the court in order to get his way. This is where we get the strategy that we hear coming from the left right now. Okay, I can't think of a more fascist way than packing a court that is supposed to be unbiased, that is supposed to be non-political, with people that are going to essentially be activist judges. FDR actually did look at fascism as a saving grace. And because of what was going on at the time in the United States, he did not cross that threshold. With a lot of the events, if some of the things would have happened a little bit differently, and if we didn't have such close ties with England at the time, it is highly possible that the United States could have entered World War II on the side of Germany.
Probably would have.
Okay. Because that is literally the type of relationship that FDR had with Hitler until we did actually enter the war. Okay. And you will find that we didn't enter the war until it was very late into FDR's presidency, and he actually died in office shortly after we entered World War II. These are all things that people do not understand. And the really bad thing about it is that adage, those that fail to learn from history are destined to repeat it. That's what we are seeing happening today. A lot of the events that we saw happen in the 1900s to 1950, we're seeing being repeated today on a different scale, but they are many of the same things that were actually transpiring in that era. We also look at many of the race riots and so forth that occurred in the 60s, late 50s, early 60s, as being the catalyst that ended up bringing about civil rights. And that isn't true, okay? Because civil rights was already starting to be implemented. A lot of what was going on with these riots and so forth were actually students that were actually anti-government and were pushing to get us towards a more socialistic or communistic society. Okay. And they started springing up shortly after the impact of McCarthyism and the Warren Commission were ending. Okay. And those impacts were actually starting to degrade. What put a pause on us actually continuing to progress towards full socialism and potentially full communism is the Cold War. Okay, we did not, even when we entered World War II, knowing that Russia was going to be our ally, which is after the split between Russia and Germany, we did not trust Russia. Okay, and Russia didn't trust us. Okay, and a lot of the propaganda that was going on, both in Russia and in the United States, we're talking about the evils of capitalism.
Well, we hear that today a lot from the progressive movement.
Okay, and that's what really led to the rise of socialism and the Socialist Party and the Communist Party during the 1920s, 30s, and 40s.
Yeah, but
okay, and it wasn't really until the start of the Cold War that we started seeing that rhetoric really start to cool.
Yeah, but it's amazing to me that they always want to say, "Oh my God, capitalism's so bad, it's so evil," as they take advantage of it. You know, if you own an iPhone, if you believe that capitalism is bad and socialism is great, you damn well shouldn't have. Forget iPhone. You shouldn't have a cell phone because that's capitalist. That's evil. Your jeans should be no-name brands, and hopefully you bought them from a Goodwill, not bought them in a store. I don't care if that's Walmart, Sears, or what name brand it has. But the reality is, Americans, the American socialist movement in our college systems, they are blind to the obvious nature of fallacies and nature of their discrepancies. I mean, there's a reason why students in the 2024 free speech survey that just came out, 248 colleges across the United States, Harvard is ranked 248 out of 248. It is the bottom, the worst. By the way, out of the 19 colleges in New York, out of 19 colleges in New York State that were on the survey, there were 2/3 of them were New York State colleges, private and public, all were in the bottom from 200 to 248. They were some of the worst. And in fact, if you count 96, 196 and 194, then you would have had fully 3/4, 75% of all New York colleges do not respect and disincline free speech. And yet, these are the same places that these kids are learning about socialism, learning about communism, and they're being told that the socialists, the communists, that the terrorists that hate America and hate them are good. We've seen, I mean, there are movements that say queers for Hamas. Are you out of your mind? They will kill you. They will kill a progressive and a leftist and a LGB and everyone on the left. They will kill you faster than they'll kill anyone on the right. Why? Because you believe in everything they absolutely hate: women's rights, the rights of gays, not having a religious belief, not just not having their religious abortion. These are things they will kill you for. And this is everything that the left is for. And yet the left is telling us that these are wonderful people because their teacher said these are wonderful people, because none of them are taking a second to think about this and say, wait a minute, that doesn't make any sense. And because they do not support free speech, there's no one else like you and I and Frank up there saying, you know what, this doesn't make any sense. Let me debunk this for you. Oh no, we're the bad guys and we can't be allowed to speak at any of these colleges because, oh my God, you may say something that will make sense and stop me from continuing to follow blindly down the path that have been led to me, that these academics have put before us. It's really upsetting.
No,
Well,
it is.
I don't think the colleges are lacking in free speech. Not at all. Not at all. I think you can say anything that you want to say, make any sign that you want to make, fly any flag that you want to make, so long as it's approved.
Well, yeah, and
it's not a matter of free speech. It's a matter of correct speech. You can be free to do and say anything that you want to say on any of these colleges, so long as the speech and the message that you have conforms to the ideology of the administration, of the faculty, and of the student body at large. You can find probably the most depraved, sickening acts being committed on any campus anywhere in America, and being done so with the stamp of approval by the administration. However, if you should happen to walk across your college campus with a crucifix or a Star of David around your neck, you will be excoriated and you will be censored. It's not, you're free to say anything you want. It reminds me of Henry Ford when he introduced the Model T. And they were talking about it. He has this little press conference, and they asked him, well, what color that you can get him in? Well, you can get them in any color that you want, so long as it's black. And it's the same thing that's happening on colleges today, is that you can say anything that you want, so long as it's on this side of the agenda. Everything else is forbidden. Now, you may be able to speak those things, but you're going to have to do it off campus. You're not going to be able to do it with any sort of student union group or funding apparatus that these other groups are entitled to, where they get their little workspaces and their safe spaces, and they get their clubs and their their little orientation.
And their First Amendment spaces.
Right. They have all of these spaces that they're allowed to conduct their activities in, unless you're of the right. Because as long as these people tend to believe that anything that you say has a conservative viewpoint to it, like you mentioned before, Vass, it's a microaggression. It's hostility. You're harming people. You're hurting them. And we are a no violence campus. You can't have any sort of violent rhetoric, any of that speech here. You can't have it. It's not that we're curtailing your speech. We're curtailing hate. We're curtailing violence. We can't have violence. And since your speech is tantamount to ripping somebody's lungs out and stepping on them, we can't have that. So then,
but they'll support Hamas, and they'll support using human shields. They'll support sexually abusing innocent civilians and dragging them through the street. They will support that all day long. But how dare I question that and be on a college campus?
Because all of that is fake news, Fast. That's all been perpetrated by the Jews and the Jew media networks that are controlled by Israel and the big banks. That's
and
all.
The live streams that come from Hamas itself.
No, they're not live streams coming from Hamas.
They do live streams. Hamas has made live streams.
Those are all Jews dressed up as Hamas that broadcasts the signal under the Hamas flag, because it's all propaganda. Don't you understand? There's no Hamas. Hamas never hurt anybody. Well, yeah, Hamas is sitting there just trying to, protect their babies.
You know, there's a former leader of Hamas.
You recognize me being facetious.
No. There's actually it actually came out on Thursday. One of the former leaders of Hamas, the government division, a terrorist, he actually came out and said Hamas does not harm civilians. He said, no, we've never hurt a civilian before in our life. We didn't do it. It's not real. They literally came out and said exactly what you just said. They said, nope, it's just not real. Don't worry about that. Forget about the live streams, the videos from every news agency and intelligence agency around the world. Forget about the families of non-Jews in countries across the planet that have been taken hostages, that their kids and their family members have been taken hostage. Forget about all that. None of it is real. Hamas are just angels, and you need to give them more humanitarian aid so they could send over their flower power in the form of a rocket made by Iran. Yes, give them another couple $100 million and see how well that works out. I'm very upset about this. And thank God we have a speaker now so we can, and Mike Johnson, this is his moment to shine. No one knows about him. I don't care what his kid's color is. Mike Johnson has the choice to go out and actually stand up and say, guess what? We're not giving money to Hamas. Screw them. At the end of the war, maybe we'll talk about it. But we didn't give humanitarian aid to Germany in 1938. We didn't give humanitarian aid to China in 1966. We weren't going to Cuba and giving Che Guevara resources. We didn't give the resources to Venezuela until the Biden administration got in, and now we are, as they killed their own Venezuelan people and forced those people to flood the United States. There's no reason in hell why we should be giving Hamas any kind of humanitarian aid at this moment. That's what I want to see from Mike Johnson. That's what I want to see. The number one thing I want to see him to start with.
Well, One thing I could tell about Mike Johnson is he was instrumental in helping get the Landrews out of power in Louisiana.
Okay.
You had the Landrew dynasty in Louisiana. They ran everything from the government, the Senate, the state house,
Yeah.
the rep. They were everywhere.
Yeah.
He was instrumental. I know he had a good part in getting them out of power, and that at least helped Louisiana move forward. And I know that he's a tremendous Second Amendment supporter.
Mhm.
So I'm gonna hope. I mean, you have people. Oh well, Trump gave him the rubber stamp. I don't care what Trump does.
Yeah,
I
I
don't
don't
care
either.
what Trump says or what Trump does. When he's president again, if he's president again, I'll give a damn about what he has to say about who he endorses. His endorsement doesn't mean a damn thing about what this guy does tomorrow. It doesn't mean anything to me. I don't care about endorsements. Same thing. A
Endorsements
celebrity
are for,
can't sell me a car. A celebrity ain't selling me a politician.
endorsements are only for low information individuals who have no idea what's going on.
Right. I mean, I couldn't give a shit what Ben Affleck is driving, that he's going to tell me what to buy. You know, I can't tell. I can't tell what ice cream Paris Hilton tells me to friggin' eat. I don't give a shit. I don't give a shit what anybody tells me. I do my own research. Everybody should do the same.
No, I agree with you. And that's, but that's what an endorsement is. It's just somebody telling you, don't think, just do what we told you. Just do what we do. Just follow the leader. Just follow. And, the more college you have, the more likely you are to be a follower, not a leader. Our colleges don't make great leaders. They make great followers. And that's all they're there for. And we have a Congress that is trying to be subsumed by a bunch of followers. My problem is we have far too many establishment people who are just there to kick things down the road. And I want to see Mike Johnson, who is an establishment Republican. And yeah, he has a couple of issues that I think he's done all right on. I want him to step up and show us that he has a focus. He has roughly about 25 days to get a budget passed. And that's not a whole hell of a lot of time. But then again, it shouldn't take that long to say we're not going to spend more money than we actually have. It should be rather simple. It should be rather easy to say we're not going to give more money than we've already given 2 years of GDP to the people of Ukraine. We can slow down and hold back for a bit.
We're spending $2 trillion more a year this year,
yes,
than we did 2 years ago.
Yes,
we were spending $4.2 trillion to keep, as a government entity, was spending $4.2 trillion a couple of years ago. Now it's $6.3 trillion.
6.7, I thought.
6.7. We are taking in $3.8 trillion. Where are they getting this? How do you write a budget? It's not a budget. A budget, the definition is a budget is to only spend what you have, within your means. This is not a budget. I don't give a shit what they write. This is not a budget. We cannot afford a single dime to go to Ukraine. I hate to say it, but we cannot afford a single dime to go to Israel. We can't afford to do anything else ever again. This clock that's on the screen right now, if this is not erased or addressed soon, we can't do it. There's comes to the, America's the richest country in the face of the earth. No, we're not. We are the most indebted country on the face of the earth. We are one of the poorest countries when you look to our credit to debt ratio.
Okay, there's a number here that I want everyone to look at where you can see
the unfunded liability number.
$210 trillion, more than
unfunded liabilities. This year, we will be spending more money on our interest on our debt that we will not be adding any money to the principal of the debt. We are going backwards.
Yeah.
You know
and
when
the-
you have a credit card and you have a minimum due, you got $1,000 in credit, and they turn around, oh, you got to put $75 down a month. That's your minimum credit. $70 goes to your interest. $5 goes to your principal. If you send them $65 a month instead, 65 goes to your credit, to your interest. Nothing goes to your principal. It gets added to the principal. Now you owe more. We are there's less money being spent now towards our principal. We are not putting anything towards principal at all. And
Well-
that number is just going to go up and up and up and up.
it's
And the people in Washington, they all know one thing, and everybody seems to forget. They will all be dead, buried, and turned to dust before anybody will ever be held accountable for this friggin' chart.
Yeah, but the thing that everyone needs to keep in mind, at $210 trillion, that is 4 times all the money in the world. Literally, all the money in the world put together is less than how much we owe in debt right now. We can never get out of this debt.
Well, they better hope that when the meteor does hit the United States at some point, that it's a big solid one made of gold, and we can harvest it after the destruction, because there's no way that this will ever get paid.
Yeah, and look at how bad it's going to get. By the most conservative estimates that are out there, we're looking at it going to somewhere between 40, and these are the conservative ones, and say it could only get as bad as $45 trillion. But I guarantee you, I've seen numbers that just 3 months ago were saying 50, possibly $55 trillion. This is in the next 3 to 5 years.
Well, where are we right now? What is our individual responsibility for these things right now? Somewhere like $180,000 each.
If you're talking about per taxpayer,
Yeah.
That means only the roughly 40% of people who actually pay taxes. And I know a lot of people say, well, I pay taxes. Did you get a refund? Yeah, you didn't pay taxes. No, I'm talking about only the people who pay taxes, which is about 40%. They actually owe, the debt to them is $259,000 per taxpayer. If you were to make that even, remember, they love to be let's be equal about this. Everyone gets to pay. And well, that means everyone owes $100,000 per person. That's a baby, retired, 20-year-old, everyone, $100,000. If it's just the people who are actually paying for everything, which is only 40% of the population, and all of that almost entirely, 90% of all of it is paid by the top 5%. They're looking at $250,000 per person.
I want to bring your attention to something real quick.
Yeah.
Michael
Yeah.
and Frank and our viewers. You see that item right directly in the center of the page at the top, right below where it says state debt per citizen?
Hang on, let me bring it back up so everyone can see what you talk about. On the state side?
No. It's literally right in the middle, top row, right by the U.S. federal tax revenue where it says revenue per citizen.
Revenue per citizen. Yeah, remember, I can't see it. This is on a far screen for me, so I can't see what I have up here.
It is literally right in the center. Okay. And it says that amount is $13,000 and $13,230. The average income in the United States is, as of 2019, was $31,133.
Okay, so you're talking about on the green side. By the way, I have that highlighted right now. So that's on the balance sheet. This is your taxes. This is what people are paying into. And people are paying approximately $13,230 for this tax year per person, if you were to break it down per person. That doesn't mean you paid $13,000 in taxes this year. So it doesn't count most people. You got a
Okay.
refund. It's not you who paid this. But yeah, and the average person, $31,000. Yeah, that's about 1/3 of all the income. If we were to make this fair,
It's actually 42%
oh, there you
of
go.
what people were making in 2019.
Yep.
According to Wise Voter, the median house income in the United States in 2023 was $67,521.
Median, yes.
Okay, so
That doesn't mean average.
let me do some quick math here.
Do 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 do. Can't stand the sound of silence.
I don't know.
The dead air is bad, guys. We gotta have music in the background for our mathematical interludes.
Well, he's doing his math. I'm letting him do his math. I don't do dead air. I have like 50 things I can talk about, but then we're going to go on to something completely different.
Okay, so essentially, every American, if we go by the Wise Voter median income, every American is paying, based on that median income, 20% of their income goes to taxes.
Well, that would be really interesting if people actually pay taxes. 60% don't.
I know. So basically, what I'm trying to say here is median income being at 67,000 change, and the tax revenue per citizen being at 13,000 is literally the income per citizen is 20% that the federal government makes off every citizen.
No, it makes me think of something. I had a conversation on Thursday with a leftist, live stream conversation. And this leftist, who is a white female PhD, author of a book, owner of a business, was telling me, who's in her 30s, is telling me how she's oppressed. Owns a car. Not sure if she owns a house or not, maybe renting. But again, she's telling me about how horrible America is and how she's so terribly oppressed. This is a theme we hear from liberals from the left on a regular basis. They are so absolutely horribly, terribly oppressed. They're not paying $13,000 a year in taxes. In fact, they're getting refunds. They're living, they want universal basic income. They've been complaining. We've seen TikTok videos that just came out this week. It's gone viral about how working 9 to 5 is just too beyond. How could you possibly torture someone by having them work 9 to 5, 5 days a week? I have to look at these people who are telling me they're so oppressed, that the world is so terrible. And I have to look at them and I have to say, what the hell more? How much more can America give you? How much better a quality of life do you think you can have? Nowhere in the world does it get better than this. That you could literally be a woman, business owner, author, PhD by the age of 30 anywhere else in the world. And you're telling me, well, I'm oppressed. What's oppressing you? How can you tell me what's left to be oppressed about? Go anywhere else in the world. You won't get half of those things by the time you're 60. But in America, that's called oppression. In America, it's called oppression because you have a feeling like you deserve more. What else is there to give? You're not paying part of the taxes. You're not paying into the tax system. You're receiving checks every year from the government, and you're asking the government to give you even more checks and even more money. I don't understand this.
Now, this is someone that is from the city that you had this argument with?
No, she's actually in Michigan. She's
Michigan.
a fan of, part of the Governor Whitmer crowd. But definitely is self-avowed progressive, and teaches on progressive ideology.
She's in Michigan.
Yes.
Did you ask her to take a ride into just outside of downtown Detroit?
No,
And
I didn't.
Spent a couple of days just outside of downtown Detroit where all the auto factories.
Yeah, no. Her answer was, I just don't understand. I don't understand the poverty. I don't understand minorities. I don't understand the oppression. And of course, I am a Republican man. So therefore, I can't possibly understand the plight of women because I'm somehow not human and capable of understanding life. And somehow I can't appreciate how someone with a PhD, a book, a business in America, how that person is oppressed. I don't see the oppression there, and obviously that just makes me evil. I'm just a Republican.
You've never walked a mile in her Birkenstocks.
No, instead I grew up in the Bronx, and I was poor, and I still am poor. And you know what? I don't know. I think I've got a pretty damn good suntan that I was born with. So I think I might understand in the last 55 years. I might have some clue what oppression could look like. But, maybe the Republican just washed it off of me. It's just insulting. It's insulting. It's stupid. And when we stop with literally take away the emotion and think about that statement, and then look at these progressives, that same kind of mentality is teaching our next generation to go and use genocide and terrorism to get what they want, their desires. And we are busy hearing our news media that is lying to us paragraph after paragraph, literally giving us the news and then lying to us in the very next paragraph. That same news media is telling us that our government can't operate properly because we're not giving away enough money to enough protected groups. Mike Johnson is being reviled right now. Why? Because they're afraid that he won't give enough extra money, enough free stuff.
Extra.
Is that not insane? They're upset with him, not because he's a Republican. They have to attack him because he won't give enough free stuff to a nation that is $33 trillion in debt and is being attacked by Iran around the world.
Well, I'm going to go back to this debt clock here for just a little bit.
Sure.
And I want to bring some key figures into this. Okay. Our total debt to GDP ratio right now is 137.97%.
Yeah.
Our revenue to GDP ratio is 29.38%. Our spending, and these are the two numbers, these should be reversed. Okay, at the very least, they should be equal. And if they go the way they are right now, it shows that we are way overspending. Our spending to GDP ratio is 37.27%.
Mm-hmm.
So we are spending more a higher percentage of our GDP ratio than we are actually making.
Yep. Absolutely.
Okay. And that's what these two figures right here indicate. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
These need to be, the revenue to GDP ratio should be higher than the spending to GDP ratio. That is the only way that we can actually start seeing our debt start to reverse. As long as these numbers remain like they are now, where the revenue is low, percent of revenue to GDP ratio is lower than the spending to GDP ratio, we will continue to see our national debt climb.
Yeah.
And nobody will give a shit. Because again, the people who are responsible for these numbers will all be dead and buried before the bill ever gets to the table. They don't care. They don't. This debt clock should be sitting directly behind the Speaker of the House and the Vice President every time there's a State of the Union address. This should be on a screen right behind them. And every one of our representatives should be forced to wear little stickers or patches for all the companies that pay them money to run these kinds of numbers up. All the special interest groups. We see it with NASCAR drivers. We should be able to see who the corporate sponsors behind our politicians are. Because the people aren't responsible. The people are responsible for this in the regard that we elect the idiots that go over and do this. But it's the idiots that go ahead and do this that turn around and try to convince the people that this is normal and that this is good for us. These are the doctors in the 1940s that signed on with Philip Morris to say a Paul Mall is just what the doctor ordered. To convince you that everything that was bad for you was good for you. And that's what this whole debt clock is. They try to convince you that this is going to somehow benefit your grandchildren.
Yeah.
This is good for your nation.
Okay, and here's something else I want to point out. Do you realize that we are literally spending $3.8 trillion in interest?
Yeah. And that's going up, by the way. Every time interest rates go up, that number is jumping.
Now, here's the other thing. Who do we give the money to? See, that's the other thing that people don't realize. Yeah, we owe this money and we have this $3.8 trillion in interest that we're paying. Who do we owe the money to that 3.8 trillion in interest is 3.8 trillion in profit for them? Somebody is benefiting $3.8 trillion annually in profit. Our money is going into the pocket of someone else in the way of interest payments in profits. America doesn't. Who do we owe the money to?
American citizens and several nations around the world. Notably, the largest national holders would be China, Japan,
right,
United Kingdom,
right,
Germany. In that order.
The very first time that the United States had to take loans, and that money came from China, the person responsible for making that loan should have been tarred and friggin' feathered. That person should have been tarred and feathered. The United States of America, if our government is going to take money out to facilitate the needs of federal spending for the bullshit that we want our government to spend it on, it should at least be borrowed from American companies, American taxpayers. Now, granted, I don't want to see that money get borrowed from Social Security Fund, but let's face it, there's nothing in the Social Security Fund right now anyway. It's already gone. There's numbers on paper, but there's not like there's a big vault somewhere with all your Social Security money piled up and they're just giving it out every month to the people who earned it. All of that money is gone. All of this money is going into profit somebody else. And then we wonder why Chinese children outperform American children scholastically.
And physically.
We worry about why we're worried about the Chinese military they have more people in the military than we have citizens.
Well, let's look at China's debt ratios. Okay. China, their public, okay, this here's the world debt clock, and it shows everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So China, with a population of
almost 2 billion people.
Yeah.
About
1.5 billion people.
Yeah, about 1.6. Yeah.
Has a national debt of $14 trillion.
Hmm?
Their public debt to GDP ratio is 82.14%. Their external debt to GDP ratio is 17.2%. Okay, now, external debt means debt that they get from other countries. Public debt ratio is meaning debt that they actually have internally. Our public debt ratio is 92.88%. In other words, this number right here shows that we are out of money internally. We have another 89.51% of external debt. Okay. There are a few countries that are actually doing worse than we are. Japan has a 300.98% public debt to GDP ratio and an external debt to GDP ratio of 116.48%. But honestly, folks, we can't keep this up. The world can't keep this up.
No. But that's why the world's getting
Okay. I
closer
mean, the
to a
world
war.
is out of money.
Yes.
And as you see, I'm scrolling down through here, and these numbers are just ridiculous.
Everybody owes the money to somebody.
Yeah.
But at the end of the rainbows, there's somebody that everybody owes everything to.
Theoretically.
Yeah, somebody. If everybody owes everybody everything, if everybody's in debt to, there's one person everybody's in debt to. Either that, or the human race has just gotten to the point where we no longer know how to live within our means to produce what we're supposed to produce, live by what we can manufacture, use no more than you take. I just don't understand. I just don't get it. The whole world of finances I'm waiting for the Great Reset.
Yeah, the Great Reset, which means everyone's going to be impoverished. God, they don't know how terrible this would be. Resetting is not a good thing. It's like having the fire shut.
I know it's not a good thing. I'm just waiting for it to happen.
Yeah, it's going to be a horror story. The left have no idea. I mean, they can't live without having their cell phones with them 24 hours a day. And you're talking about resetting the value of everything? Oh, forget about it. They're out of their minds. They have no idea the abject poverty they're going to live in. But let's shift a little bit because we're kind of running out of time. I want to shift a little bit. And I know we lose people because of math and they go, numbers, I'm running away. Got to see MILF Manor instead. So, okay, let's bring you back from MILF Manor. Let's get back. And you don't understand. It's easy. You're poor and you're going to get a hell of a lot more poor unless you stop allowing the Democrats and government in general from spending money they don't have. You can't do it. Don't let them do it. But in the meantime, let's deal with the next big problem, because we've talked about the Speaker of the House and we don't care about what color his son is, period, full stop. If you do, you are a racist, not me. We talked a little bit about what's happening at Cooper Union. And if you support Hamas, which is the government of Palestine, and you want to give them aid as they are holding human shields and hostages, you support terrorism, not me. Let's continue on. We know that America is going bankrupt, and we know that the left are telling us that we have to go even more bankrupt because they want more, because they always want more, and they don't want to work to get it. So no, screw them. No, like a 5-year-old. No, you don't get to have more ice cream just because you want it. No. Now, the last one of the biggest things is Maine. And Peter was mentioning earlier, and I did want to address that. And thank you, Peter, for updating us as we went live. It seems the breaking news is the Maine shooter, the mass shooter in Maine, was found, and he apparently ended his own life. And the thing I said to Peter at the time, and I showed it on the screen earlier, was I'm not surprised, because this had nothing. We've heard a lot of people talk about, we need red flag laws, we need more gun control, and none of that. That's all stupid crap taking advantage of the sensationalism. The fact is, this was a mental health issue from the start. It has never been anything but a mental health issue. Whether you used a firearm, a car, a bomb, a knife, a sword, all of these things that we have seen people with mental health issues do all across America, including in New York City in the subways about once a week, pushing people in front of subway cars. The problem isn't the weapon. The problem was the guy was hearing voices in his head, and
told multiple people that he's hearing voices in his head.
And nobody stopped and said, well, you know what? Let's put you in an institution for a little bit. Let's get you checked out, including the United States government. He's a reservist. The United States government, when they are told he is property of the United States, that's what the contract means. That's what happens when you swear the oath. You are the property of the United States, and they could just order him, and he is mandated to go and get mental health check. Everyone failed, and it had nothing to do with a red flag law or gun control. None of those things would have stopped him from harming someone if the voices in his head were telling him to do so. And if you think that this is about red flag laws that happened in Maine, you are dumb, and you are going to cost someone their life. That's what I think about it. And, I'm a little energetic.
Okay. As I was reading on this today, he literally told let's see, I'm actually trying to find it so I don't get this wrong. He told military officials that he was hearing voices in his head.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm actually trying to find exactly if they were actually military psychologists or who they were, but it was definitely military officials. And even if they weren't psychologists or psychiatrists or whatever, the fact is, he told somebody,
go straight
at
up
the very least, in his chain of command, that he was hearing voices in his head that were telling him to harm other soldiers. Right there should have been immediate grounds for the military to step in, institutionalize the person, and get him the help that he was desperately seeking.
Mm-hmm. At the very least, just have him checked out. And literally, it's an order.
We failed.
Yeah.
As a society, we failed. And it wasn't because we didn't have gun laws. We failed because this guy clearly was asking for help, and we ignored it.
It had nothing to do with whether or not he had a gun. Had nothing to do with whether or not he had access to a car, a knife, a sword, chemicals in his backyard, rat poison. There are so many ways that people die in this country, in this world. And I mean, by the hundreds, by the tens of thousands, we see this on a regular basis. Don't try and go. Anyone who's saying it's about the gun, you are using your political partisanship to blind yourself to the real problem. It was a mental health issue. He's dead because of a mental health issue. Other people are dead because of a mental health issue. Don't fixate on the way that he and others may have died, because that's not important.
We as a society failed. Okay. And you guys can try to say, all you anti-gun people can try to say that is because we don't have red flag laws, or you can try to say because the evil AR-15 and all this other stuff. No. We failed as a society because this gentleman, okay, and I'm not going to call him a gentleman, this mentally disturbed individual was crying for help, cried to multiple people for help.
Are you ready for bed?
Multiple people recognized that he was mentally disturbed, and nobody took action to get this individual the help he needed. That's where we failed as a society. And we fail every day across the United States because there are people all across the United States that are committing suicide and doing other acts of atrocities that are constantly crying out for help, and we ignore them because we're too wrapped up in our own selfish lives.
Wrong.
What?
You're wrong.
Why is that?
How so?
They're not ignored because we're wrapped up in our own lives. Authorities ignore them because they want to ignore them, because they know that this is the end result. They know that when you ignore these people long enough and you let them suffer with mental illness long enough, that eventually they're not the only person that suffers because of their mental illness. Their mental illness metastasizes and hurts other people. It hurts their family, hurts their community. It helps the people. It hurts the people at large. And it hurts to the point where somebody goes and they get a rifle or a handgun and they go into a bowling alley and they kill 20 some odd people. They're not doing it because they're wrapped up with anything. They're not doing it because it's a failure on the behalf of government. This is because this is what they want to do. They want this to happen. They know that if it bleeds, it leads. The media loves it when they see dead kids on the news. The anti-gunners love it. They love it when they see little dead kids. They love when they see a blood trail leading into the sewer. They love when they see the pain, the people crying. They love seeing the bed sheets covered over bodies in the street. They love it. They get off on it because it gets them closer to their goal of disarming the people. They do this on purpose. They let these people who have these mental issues run around in the streets and they don't do anything to stop them. They don't do anything to treat them. They don't do anything to give them any help except to do what? They give them hallucinogenic drugs. They give them shit that has more side effects than you can count, that make them, most cases, make their problems even worse. And they leave them be. They don't ever give them treatment because they know that's another ticking time bomb out in the street. They know that's going to be another one that's going to wind up, well, we're in this zip code giving them treatment, but they live in that zip code. They're probably going to blow up over there. They're not going to blow up over here. So it's not my problem, not in my backyard. It's going to happen in somebody else's backyard. It'll be somebody else's family, somebody else's wife, somebody else's father, somebody else's son, somebody else's kids. It's going to be somebody else that has to deal with the problem that government created, not because they failed, but because it's the ends of the means. It works to their advantage to have these things happen. It works to their advantage. You think that guy that shot up Fort Hood, whatever, Nidal Hassan, Major Nidal Hassan, he was ranting and raving for months and months and months before he went off on that killing spree inside of Fort Hood. And the government did nothing to stop him. They did nothing to stop him. There are more cases that we can go back and look at where evidence was gathered, information was known. Oh, this person was known by authorities. Well, if you were known by authorities, what did you do about it? They didn't do anything about it. They let it go. We want to sit back and observe. We want to sit back and observe because this is the guy who's most likely to explode. But the guy who buys two handguns at the store at the same time, he's the guy you throw a red flag on. The guy doesn't have a history of mental illness, doesn't have a history of problems. That's the guy that you throw red flags on. But the ones that are the dangerous ones that you were notified about, that you were
the ones in New York to buy 3 boxes of ammo.
Yeah, the ones who came to you and told you, I need help. Those are the ones that you ignore. because you know those are the ones that are going to pop.
No,
And then you get to say, now we have to take everything. Now we have to disarm the people. Now we have to do this. Now we have to do that. No, your responsibility. Well, Lori and I were sitting there talking. I said, look how many of these servicemen go over and they fight. And they see things and they do things in the heat of battle that you would never expect yourself to do. You could never imagine yourself to do. Things that you would never even imagine seeing in your life. These guys come back and they have these scars in their brain of the shit that they've had to deal with. They didn't ask to go do that. They were sent to go do that. And then when they come home, carrying that baggage, carrying that weight, nobody is there to help alleviate them from that. The VA sucks. Yes. You guys are both Marines. You both know damn well what it's like trying to get any sort of health care from the government after you guys have done your time. You did what you had to do. You served your country. You carried that gun. You put your life on the line, and you get nothing in return. And when our men and women come back from fighting overseas, and they get even less than nothing, they get nothing and then a bill on top of it. And they don't get the treatment that they asked for, that they were told, they were promised that they would get. And then when you have them running around with post-traumatic stress disorder and they got all kinds of problems and no one to turn to, they got to turn to each other. And they got to turn to people like groups like Hold My Guns that have to take their guns away from them and say, we're going to help you because the government isn't. When you've got thousands of organizations like the Liberty First Foundation who were there, they're going to say, listen, if you're having a problem, we're going to come in and we're going to help you. We're going to find the resources to help get you through this because government failed you. Government failed you. This is the agenda. This is the agenda. And it's the small groups that have to pick up the slack where the government failed because they'd rather send money to friggin' Hamas than send it over to a VA clinic so that our service members can get treated.
Yeah.
And then when we have something happen in the street, and it's not even just a matter of people in the service. Anybody in the daily throes of life can have post-traumatic stress disorder from just living life with some of the shit that they have seen. When I was 5 years old, my father took me on the Brooklyn-Queens Expressway. We were going into Manhattan. He was working a 4 to 12 one day, and I was going to spend the day at the police station with him. I was a little kid. He was working the desk. And you know the BQE, Mike, when you go down and you got that trench in the BQE heading towards the Brooklyn Bridge, you know those overpasses?
Yeah, I know that.
Yeah, what, 30 feet in the air, right?
At least, yeah.
All right. And then you got the 10-foot gate on top of that. You know, the pedestrian gate. Yeah. My father and I were stuck in dead traffic in August, windows down in my father's 1976 Cadillac Coupe de Ville. And I'm sitting in the front seat and I'm looking up at a guy standing there on a walkway. And my father, he's telling me, he goes, Frank, what are you looking at? And he could see what was about to happen. Guy did a swan dive right off of that thing from about probably 45 feet up and landed head first next to my Cadillac. Ooh. His head exploded like a friggin' watermelon. Exploded like a watermelon. That shit is in my brain every day. I see that shit in my head every single day. A 5-year-old kid should never have to see something like that.
No.
5-year-old kid should never have to see something like that. And I've seen other tragedies as well. I've never been to war. I can't imagine like what Alexander, who's been on this program, what he had to deal with when he was in Afghanistan. And then when they come back and our government fails them and nobody is there to give them the help. And then when shit happens, whether it's a service member or an ordinary citizen who's dealing with some sort of stress or something in their mind that can't get the help, they ignore the people who need the help and punish the people who don't. They take the rights away from the people who are not a threat and who don't have problems, and they point to the people that do and say, well, look what happened there. Well, you failed your job there. You failed, government. Mm-hmm. You failed at the state level, the city level, municipal level, at the government. Every level, you failed this person. And then you use what they did as a result of your failure to try and take the rights away from the people who are just trying to live their goddamn lives. That's the problem in the country. And unfortunately, there's too many stupid idiots out there, useful idiots, that believe that acquiescing your rights is going to make somehow everything going to be just fine and just everything is going to be dandy. Well, I'll point you back to Charlottesville. Everybody talked about how that racist maniac who killed all those people, he didn't use a gun. He plowed his car through a parade, killed those people. You had the guy last year. How many people did that other guy kill last year with his car parade, going through a parade?
Oh, you're talking about in Northeast. It was in the Northwest. Excuse me.
It was like
the
in Washington.
Thanksgiving Day parade 2021. He ran over 60 people. He had actually 61 people, and I believe he killed 20. Because, and I remember in the courtroom, the prosecutor read out every single one of the charges 61 times to make sure everyone understood what he was there for, why he was being put in jail. Yeah.
There was no gun involved there.
No, that was just a van. That was a minivan.
That was a van. There was a case 3 months ago in Texas. Some guy, they had one of these bus stops where a lot of the illegals congregate to try and pick up work. Like a lot of times you'll see them outside of a Lowe's or a Home Depot or something like that, like a couple of blocks away. They're looking for day work or something like that. You had a couple of months ago, one of them flipped out. Had an argument with his wife. He wound up running over a whole bunch of illegals that are standing there working for, waiting for work. You didn't hear nothing about it because it was an illegal that did the driving and killed more illegals. So you didn't hear nothing about that.
You mean the guy down, Ricardo Oropesa down in Texas, who killed a family of 5, including I believe it was a 5-year-old child, but the news media didn't want to talk about it because Mr. Oropesa was a illegal alien that had been removed from the United States 3 times. Yeah.
But again, it's not the gun. It's not the gun.
Yeah.
If something drives somebody to do something bad, whether it's a mental illness, you want to point to a chemical imbalance, whatever that might be, or if it's just plain evil. Whatever it is that causes somebody to act and do something so heinous, Hitler killed millions of people, is responsible for the death of millions of people, probably never pulled the trigger of his own. Probably not once. Charles Manson is responsible for the Tate and LaBianca murders. He's responsible for everything that the Manson family did. Charles Manson never killed anybody. He never killed anybody on his own, but we regard him as an evil mass murderer. We regard people for what they do, but then we don't equate what they use. I don't understand why it is that every time that it's somebody involved with a firearm, they go after the firearm instead of going after the root cause.
Because it's easy to get the firearm. It's easy to take a firearm away from law-abiding citizens. It is easy to target that because it's scary. You saw it in a movie. See what it can do in a movie? You can use people's imaginations. You can incite them into fear. You can terrorize them. You can use that terror to turn against their fellow citizen. It's easy. It's hard to work with people who have a mental health issue. It's hard to identify that because most of the time you're not being told repeatedly over and over again. And it's something that you're not going to resolve in a second. It's not going to be passed by a piece of legislation or throwing some taxpayer money at it. And you're going to be held responsible because it's not going to be easy. It's going to take time. And if you didn't do your job right, it's going to fail spectacularly. That's why they go after the guns, because at the end of the day, they really don't care about the mental health issue. They don't care about anything except getting reelected and maintaining power. And this is a great way to take power. How do you become authoritarian? Take away the guns.
Again, They need the system to fail to take the guns. That's why they don't treat these people. They need them to explode. They need them to create these acts of heinous murder. They need them to do these things. Otherwise, their message falls flat. They need the atrocities to take our freedoms.
Mhm.
And that's why you'll continue to see them. And you'll continue to see them with more and more frequency. Because believe me, I want to tell you, what does the Joker say about insanity and gravity have the greatest thing they have in common is all it takes is a little push.
Dark Knight.
And it's true. Vaz, what are you drinking there?
Coffee.
Coffee? What kind of coffee are you drinking there?
This happens to be Basquello at the moment. Yes.
Well,
I'm Spanish.
I would just want
I
to
like
remind
Basquello.
everybody that if you haven't. Yeah, I know you like that, but I just wanted to remind the audience that while we were here, if I could figure out how to do it, because I'm having a hard time doing it here. Do you see that?
But that looks like a good package of coffee.
That right there, it happens to be what I'm drinking.
And
This
I can
is
tweet.
Liberty
That I
First
can tweet
Foundation.
too.
Right. This is Revolution Roast. This is our own medium blend with whiskey infused in the flavor.
Oh, I
It
like
is
that.
absolutely delicious.
I like whiskey. I love my scotch.
Well,
I love whiskey.
well, this is one of the flavors that we have. We have 2 coffee flavors, and we also have a tea. So if you guys want to support the Liberty First Foundation, you'll find the link for this in the chat. You'll actually see that the link was there, and you'll actually see it scrolling across the bottom of the thing. If you do a little sleuthing, you should be able to find it. But we'll have the link for you if you guys want to buy a couple of pounds of coffee here and there. It's great. Hey, it makes a great Christmas gift. Christmas is coming after all, and you want to be ahead of the curve on that. But that was my shameless plug just for today, because I made myself my new delivery got here yesterday. I was out. And I completely forgot to make myself coffee.
Well, I didn't get mine yet, but I do also want to remind all of my friends and all the followers that are watching the program through No Sound Bites Allowed. Don't forget, just because you're in India or you happen to be in the United Kingdom, Canada as well, guess what, guys? I know you drink tea. Liberty First Foundation sells tea too. Doesn't mean you don't get away just because you say, "Oh, I don't drink coffee." It sells tea too. So just reminding you, yeah, they sell tea too. And I know you guys drink lots of tea, especially you, Agent Black over in the UK. I know you drink tea. See, there you go.
There it is, the Rebel Tea. You might not have your own Boston Tea Party, but you can have one wherever you are. Have a little Rebel Tea from the Liberty First Foundation. It's good stuff.
Yeah.
I just had to throw those couple of plugs out there while we speak.
Makes sense.
All right. Just to let you know, well, I gotta cancel that. Stop screen. God, I gotta get my computer in here. I'm back in the office for like the second show, and I'm not used to anything my setup is right now. I'm not used to any of it. Just want to let everybody know, if you guys remember a couple of years ago, we did a promotion called the Freedom February Calendar. I don't know if you guys may remember that, but what we did is we ran the most amazing contest that we could possibly run. And what we did is we picked out the month of February, and it was a leap year, so we had 29 days in it. And we picked out 29 amazing prizes. Everything from firearms, knives, bags, safes, range finders, different scopes, all different kinds of firearm related products, and a couple of non-firearm related products. We had fishing gear. We actually had a bow and arrow that shoots fishing line, so you can go fishing with a bow and arrow. We had some amazing stuff on there. Well, the Freedom February calendar culminated with it worked like this. We had 1,000 tickets for sale, numbering 000 to 999.
Okay.
1,000 tickets. And during the month of February, what we did is, as a number came out starting February 1st, a number would come out and we tied it to the New York State Lottery. As a pick 3 would come out in New York for the evening drawing, say number 215 came out. If you had ticket number 215, you won the prize that corresponded with that day.
Best way to do it.
If the following day number 527 comes out, whoever had ticket number 527 won the prize offered on day 2. And the way we did it was every Friday was a firearm, every Thursday was a knife, every Saturday was a gift certificate to one of our sponsor retailers, and we had a great time with the whole promotion. It was great. And the 29th, we had commissioned, and we didn't have to follow through with it. We had commissioned a $10,000 rifle to be built by our friends at 5150 Rifles.
Mm-hmm.
And whoever had the winning ticket on February 29th would have won a $10,000 custom-made rifle, chambered in 350 Legend. It would have been a 50-state legal AR platform. It would have been a fantastic rifle. Optics were being supplied to it, custom laser engraved and Cerakoted from head to toe. Nobody won the rifle, so we didn't have to have it built. And it was a good thing because it would have cost us more money than we took in. But we have been working diligently behind the scenes right now to put together another calendar contest that we're going to be launching this January and will culminate in July. And by July, we will have, how many days are there in July? 31?
Yes,
I believe so.
There will be 31 fantastic prizes assembled in a calendar to be disseminated, and tickets will be $10 a piece. There will be 1,000 tickets available, and if we sell all 1,000 tickets, every single prize on the platform will have to be given away.
One.
Because the odds, you can't, there will be no number that doesn't come up. Well, I should say no number on the calendar will have not be picked.
Now, here's the other thing on this contest. Just because you win a prize, your number is still valid.
So if you're one of those,
actually win multiple prizes through the period.
As long as you have your ticket, say your ticket number 777. Say 777 comes out 5 times in that month. You win 5 times. It doesn't matter. Whatever ticket you have, you're holding on for the entirety of the month. Every ticket that gets sold, we get registered with the name and the email and phone number, so we know who to contact as people win. And when they win the prizes, we notify them that they won. We get the prizes shipped out to them. If it's a firearm, it'll get sent to an FFL. You will be responsible for the transfer, fees and taxes associated with that firearm, and you'll also be responsible for having to be eligible to win a firearm if we should happen to give one of those firearms away. If you can't pass a background check, you're not going to get the gun. That's the way it's going to be. We don't play games with that.
And there's no substitute.
That'll be it. If you can't pass a background check and you win a gun, you're SOL. You shouldn't be playing it if you know you can't pass a background check. So see if you can pass a background check before you buy a ticket. Or if you have a concealed carry license, you know you're pretty good. You're going to be pretty good. Anyway, on the final day of that July, and we've already spoken to it now, and it's going to be in production next week. We will be having a 5150 custom-made patrol rifle. It'll be an AR-15 based rifle. We're not sure what caliber we're going to have it in, but or what it's going to be designed to look like. But it is going to be a one-of-a-kind rifle that somebody is going to win. So the details will be out. Just going to let everybody know. Get ready. Put some money aside for it now because the tickets are going to be $10 a piece. We're going to have the tickets available first week in January. They will cease to be sold the day before July 1st. So the last day of June is when they will cease to be sold. But it'll be got my numbers picked. Where do I send my money? Pete, I'm sorry, but the numbers are going to be assigned randomly. We can't cherry pick numbers and send them out to anybody on account of the fact that the tickets are, if somebody wants the same number, it's just not fair. So what we're going to do is the tickets, like we did the last time, the tickets will be bundled. We'll have the tickets printed. There'll be two ends of it, a stub with all the information on it and the other information with your information on it. And the tickets will be randomly sent to whoever buys them. I'm sorry for the inconvenience. If you want a specific number, you got to buy all 1,000 tickets. That's the way it's going to be. And we'll be happy with that too. But I just wanted to get that out there before it went too late. If you guys are going to keep going, you guys are going to keep going. I am going to sign myself out.
No,
I am exhausted.
We're going to go ahead and start wrapping it up. So
yeah, we're going to
go ahead and start wrapping this up,
8 o'clock. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you once again for joining us this week on the Liberty First Foundation Roundtable. Michael Marshall and Michael Vasquez did a fantastic job in my absence getting us up and running. And we had a pretty good, I was monitoring from afar. I was with you guys, even though I wasn't in studio yet. Join us back here next week. We really appreciate you guys being here. Remember to catch Michael Vasquez on No Sound Bites Allowed. Michael, give us the days and times.
The best day is always Sunday at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, where I go live and take calls and chats and texts from everywhere around the world, talking about, oh God, almost everything that's really going on everywhere.
All right. And remember, if you guys can, please, if you're watching us here on YouTube, scroll down over and see if you can't find the Range Report. And like and subscribe, and we have all our gun reviews over there. We've been working. Now that I'm back at the range, we're diligently putting up new reviews at least 2 a week for the forthcoming future. We've got a whole bunch of stuff that we need to review. And pretty soon I'm going to be reviewing a black powder rifle that we're going to be having shipped in from somewhere in West Virginia. Somebody in the audience knows about that.
I also you did a great job with the safes. With the digital safes, you just did gun safes.
Oh, did you like
really
that?
Good. I like that review. You had a lot of interesting insights, and it was pretty funny when you closed the one standing gun safe and the other one opened up because it was supposed to be locked.
Somebody asked if I had rigged that like that, and it wasn't rigged. Every one of those safes was locked shut and tight. And all it took was the vibration of the one safe next to it shutting for that other safe to pop itself open. That's all it took. And needless to say, that safe will not be the safe that gets given away.
Yeah.
That safe, the one that popped itself open, is probably going to be used in an experiment as to how much tannerite can fill a safe. And what happens when you shoot it? That'll be what happens with that one. But no, that was if you didn't catch the video, if you're looking at the biometric gun safes, that's with the keypads, fingerprint, RFID, different things like that. We did a video this past week. We got an assortment of safes that we bought. We brought them all in and we checked them all out, and we wanted to show you the benefits and drawbacks of them and some of the things that. Surprisingly, what works and surprisingly is frighteningly bad. Yeah. So if you go to the channel, it's really, listen, we don't mention any brand names. You have to research what's best for you and what you need for your life. We just wanted to give you a basic synopsis. Most of these safes are coming from the same location anyway, same technology, all manufactured by the same group. It's just you order them to look a little different. So the technology isn't that much different than any of them. And along with that is reliability. Find the one that you like, see what it, but before you buy a safe, before you put your faith and confidence and safety into one of those for you and your family, watch the video, and you guys can make a determination for yourself. Like I said, we want everybody to be safe. We want everybody to make sure that you have the right tools and components at your disposal, because we care about all of you. And we want you to be back here with us as often as possible. And you can't do that if you're no longer here. So, like I said, we care, and we wouldn't have gone through the extent and expense of putting that video together if we really didn't think it was important information for you guys, the consumer, to have. So again, find us at the Range Report, L1F. If you see this goofy face on the promo, you know that's our channel. That's our logo, the same one that's right up here in the channel. That's right up there in Vass's window. That's our logo. That'll be our logo for the YouTube channel. Find us there, like, subscribe, and share the channel, because we could definitely use the support. Up until then, I'm Frank. I identify as a toaster. I'll catch you guys next week. You guys be safe and shoot straight. I'll let these guys say goodnight as I go to let my dogs out. So love you guys. Be safe, shoot straight.
All right.
And remember, everybody, we are here every Friday night, 9 p.m. Eastern Time. You can find us on Facebook and YouTube with our live streams. We will see you next week. Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.